You're listening to Parasearch UK Radio. News, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch UK Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
You're listening to The Spirit Dimension with your host, Kerry Greenaway, right here on Parasearch Radio.
Good evening and welcome to The Spirit Dimension. My name is Kerry Greenaway. It is Sunday evening and I like to bring you all sorts of things on a Sunday evening. Tonight is no different. My guest is an international spirit medium. He is a well-known person in the field on many, many fronts. And I am absolutely thrilled to welcome to the studio Mr. Barrie John. Good evening, Barrie. How are you?
Good evening. I'm all right. I'm surviving. I'm still here.
You're knackered, I hear.
I wasn't going to say that on air. I'm okay.
I'll say it for you.
You've just said it in one word. Yes.
Absolutely knackered. And we'll tell everybody why. Because last night you was at Dudley Castle for a ghost festival, wasn't you?
Yeah, I was at a ghost festival last night, and it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. 130 guests through the door. It was terrific. But I didn't actually do the ghost hunt. What I did was readings all night. So I ended up doing 17 readings in the end, which was brilliant. But you can imagine that literally I was working from the minute I walked through the door to midnight. And then, obviously, I just wanted to get home. So I was home at the early hours of this morning and with not a lot of sleep, I'm afraid. But I'm all right. I have such a... I don't know. I love it, And I said to you a few minutes ago before we went out on air, I'm very croaky, and I think it's the fact that I talk too much.
Really?
Yeah.
It sounds like me, though, to be fair.
Yeah,
People accuse me of talking too much. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, so if I end up talking over you, just tell me to shut up.
We're both as bad as each other, I think, to be fair. So one thing I wanted to ask you about that is, that's a heck of a lot of readings, isn't it, for a block of time? 17. So how does that work? Do you get, like, crossovers or, like, so when you're reading somebody, the next lot of spirit are sort of lining up ready and waiting, or are they very respectful in that way?
They are very respectful, and do you know what? Funnily enough, I'm really glad you've asked that, because...
Oh, don't tell me I've lost you. Hello?
Stop, let me move on to the next person. It is a lot to do, and I think sometimes, I always say to people, as soon as you sit down in front of me, I'm not one of these mediums that go, right, just give me 5 minutes to link into you. I'm going, right, you've sat down, right, this is what I'm getting, this is what I'm seeing, this is what they're telling me, this is the information that's coming through. And it's almost a bit like, pardon the phrase, gunfire in a way at people. And people afterwards, when I go, is that all right? And some of them will go, yeah, but I'm just overwhelmed, or I'm shocked by what you've thrown at me. And I think, and it's lovely. I mean, we've just had a great piece of feedback from a lady last night, and I actually read for her first, then her daughter wanted a reading, and then her husband had a reading, and the husband was such, I don't want to say a skeptic, but very much, you could tell he'd been dragged along to the event, if that makes sense. And yet he had a reading, and bless him, he, and I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, he actually welled up You know, so I knew afterwards, and bless him, he just sent me a lovely private message and just said, you know what, I'm absolutely stunned at what you told me, because it all made sense, you know. And I think that's great for me. And, like, you know, the trouble is, we do this job, but a lot of people don't tell you afterwards about it. They don't turn around and say, well, do you know what, this is this, that name you gave me relates to this. And I think at times when you get that, that really makes you realise why you do the job you do.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I agree with you there. It's one of those facets that you don't often get. You get initial feedback. They go, "Oh, great, that was great, thank you," and then that's it. Yeah. You don't sort of like get any more than that. And you think, no. Was I really good? Did I give them validation? You know, you're like, what?
I know it is. And you know, I had it the other day where I actually read for two sisters, and they wanted a joint reading. You know, a double reading together. And I always say to people, look, it's not a problem to me. If that's what you want, that's fine for me. And, you know, afterwards, bless them, they actually sat with me for half an hour going, well, this was this. When you said this made sense. And I'm thinking, and I actually said to them, do you know what? That was really nice that you've actually took the time to go and explain to me the reading, because I don't know what I'm giving at times. You know what? I just go, right, come on then, guys, upstairs. You tell me what you want me to say, and I'll just go with it. And that information to me sometimes comes through, and I think, you know what, that doesn't make sense at all. But when you give it to somebody and then they go, actually, yeah, you know what, that does make sense.
Yeah, because sometimes it could be the most like craziest thing, can't it, that you're getting? Yeah. And it's like, I'm going to say it because that's what I'm getting, but oh my God, that sounds bonkers.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. This is what you get all the time at the moment, isn't it? You know, and you know, I always say to people, it's not for us to understand it. It really isn't.
No. So what's the craziest thing?
what I've given to somebody?
Yeah. What's the craziest thing you've come across that you had to give?
Oh God. You know, honestly, I mean, I never talk about clients' readings. I always remember once there was this lady that came to see me, and I'm not giving names or anything, but she came to see me, and I gave her a reading. And I always remember at the end, you know, giving her this reading and really working hard and going, is that all right? And she's going, well, yeah, that was good, but I'm really disappointed. And I said, well, why are you disappointed? She says, well, my dog never came through. And in the end, I really felt like sitting there and just going, woof, because I didn't know what else to do. Do you know what I mean? It was almost, and I don't mean that in a sarcastic way. I thought, well, I don't know what to do, because I can't guarantee what's going to happen. You know, and I always say to people, you know, if you come in for a reading with me, don't come with any expectations. Don't come thinking, I'm only going to accept it if my mum comes through. I'm only going to accept it if this person comes through. And I always say to people that, you know, the reading isn't me. The reading is between them and their loved ones upstairs. And I always say, you know what, the better that you actually work with me, and that doesn't mean giving me information, the better that you work with me, the better the link will be. Because I always say, do you know what, your loved ones don't really want to talk to me. They want to talk to you. All they're using me as is, you know, almost like I always say I'm a mobile phone or a telephone receiver, you know. And I always say, you know, that one day, wouldn't it be great if, you know, the spirit world have a mobile phone of their own that we just dial the number and go, is my mum there? Yeah, she's here. Here you go. You talk to her direct now. But you know what? We'd all be redundant, wouldn't we?
Yeah, totally. It would be like, oh my God. But that would be awesome. That would be awesome if everybody had that, you know, that ability. But we do, though, don't we? But it comes in different ways, doesn't it?
It does. And you know what? So many people, you know, when they're talking to me about experiences or scenarios, things like that, and I go, well, do you realise what you've just experienced is something that's an element of paranormal activity? And they go, what, really? I go, well, yeah. You know, and people will start talking to you about, I don't know, dream states or what's happened in the dream, and why is it that my partner's trying to contact me in my dream? Well, maybe there's a reason they're trying to come through to you. Maybe there's a reason that they're trying to let you know that they're okay. You know, and this is no different to how we work as mediums, really, you know. And I always say to people, you know, when people talk to me and go, oh, you've got a great gift, I always go, you know what, it's not a gift. It isn't a gift. Anybody can develop this ability. You know, the difference is that people develop it on either different stages, different levels, different speeds. You know, we don't all work on an even keel. And just because I'm able to give names or street names or surnames, whatever, that doesn't mean that I do it every time. Sometimes when I work with the spirit world, they'll make me work even harder with it. And they'll go, right, we're not telling you anything tonight. You've got to work for it. You've almost, pardon the expression, you've almost got to beg us for it because we're not having you being smart with this, okay? And I love how the spirit world changed the mind with us at times. But, you know, the biggest excitement for me is seeing people develop, seeing people get that first proper link, and you'll understand this. You know, when you get that first link with the spirit world and you come back and you are just, you're overblown with emotion. Something just hits you and you go, you know what, I've just done that and I don't know what I've just done, but I've done it. Yeah. And you go, exactly, you know, that's all you needed to do. It's just, you know, and people when they come back and they'll go, you know what, I've seen my mum for the first time or my dad or my partner, and I go, good, because that's what you need to do. You know, and I always, when people are going through grieving and processes like this, I always say, you know, you've got to let the spirit go, because once you let the spirit go, it comes back even stronger because there isn't that emotional tie there for them. They aren't knowing that you're always upset. They're actually coming back because they know it's a happy experience for you now and that it's pleasant. And, you know, I always say to people when they come to my consultation room and I'm, you know, at home, and I always say, you know, if you've been touched by the spirit world touching you or touching me and coming through and giving you something, good. Because if you've released an emotion while you've been with me, it's meant to have happened. And I think that's all I want to say to people is, you know, you've got to be able to, like, release. You've got to be able to let go and just allow that link to happen in whatever way it does. You know, we don't all hear, we don't all see, we don't all sense. We all work in different ways, you know, and sometimes the spirit world will give us things. And I have to say to the person, you know what, just take that with you because they're giving it you for a reason. It's obviously something coming up. And then we get titled with the good old sort of fortune telling, isn't it? Oh, you know, you're fortune telling, you're doing, you know, you're trying to tell people what's coming. Well, I'm not doing it. You know what, if the spirit world is telling me to tell you, then that's the difference. It's not me sat there in front of you going, oh, well, Kerry, you know, I know this and I know that. It's the spirit world going, well, actually, you need to tell her this because this is coming up for her. Well, okay, in some cases, that might be good. Some cases, that might be an element of what I call a warning sign or something where they're going, just be a little bit careful about it. Yeah. Okay. And isn't that what we want them to do? I certainly do. I certainly want, when my mum comes through, I wanted to go, you know what, I've been watching you and just be careful what you're doing there because I'm not quite sure where that's going or I'm not happy about that situation at the moment. Gotcha. You know, and that's what I hope that the spirit world still do to people, if that makes sense, or they will do for people because I want them to come through and I don't want them to warn people in a horrible way. I want them to warn people in a good way. So you think, actually, you know what, my mum's told me my job's going to be a bit funny over the next few months. Well, I'm going to watch for that because if it is, I'm going to do something about it.
Pre-warned, pre-warned is pre-armed, as they say.
Totally, yeah.
That actually brings me to a really big point because when you first sort of going back to when you first sort of started, because you started very young and you was involved, your family was never shy about doing things around you as children and stuff like that. You kind of started with tarot, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I always remember, gosh, I was only about 10 or 12, something like that, and I had my own set of tarot cards. And it was one of the things I always wanted my own, you know. And my mother's mother, my grandmother, she used to read a normal set of playing cards. And I never managed to work that one out, but now I understand it. But yeah, I got my first set of tarot cards, and I'll be honest with you, Kerry, it was fun. It was a novelty for me. You know, people used to say, oh, just pull us a few cards and tell us what you get. And he used to go, oh, well, I'm getting this, and I'm seeing this. And he'd go, how do you know that? And he used to go, well, I don't know. That's just what I'm getting. You know, but in a way, you know, that was only part of it because, you know, I mean, and I'm going to be very honest with people. I always am. You know, I remember dabbling with Ouija boards when we were younger and thinking, oh, my gosh, what have I just done? You know, but do you know what now? I use Ouija boards in private seances. I use them in private demonstrations. I don't use them in public unless it's a ghost hunt. But I always use them for people because I think there's nothing nicer than when people are either sat around my sort of table, you know, my big table where we're going, right, okay, let's do a seance. And they've got the finger on something and I'm sitting back and just going, right, I'm not touching anything. I just want to see what happens. And then suddenly you see it starting to move. So you see the planchette move or the glass moving on the table. And you're going, right, okay, yeah, I know who this is. And then you're going, right, I know I've got a mother figure here. And suddenly, you know, it starts spelling out mum, or it starts giving them the mother's name or something. And you're going, right, yeah, this makes sense now. And I think it's really nice because, let's be honest, you know what, people when they go to any sort of, I'll say paranormal event more than anything, they want physical proof that there is something there. And, you know, I could stand in front of 200 people and going, do you know what, there's a spirit in this room, they're stood in that corner, this is where they are. But unless people can feel that and sense that, they're not going to give up on it, you know. And I'm a huge supporter now of, you know, trying to get as scientifically proven what we do. Because I think at the moment, mediumship, we've gone through, you know, over the years, if you look at where mediumship was many years ago, we went through this phase where it was illegal, it was negative, we shouldn't do it, they didn't want people to do it, you know, you were getting arrested for the Witchcraft Act and things like that. And it just went from one extreme to the other, whereas, you know, now it's actually starting to be accepted more by people. And especially due to a lot of the public media, what we've had, and TV media, programs on TV, people are realising that actually there's more to life. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the important thing, is there's more to life. And I think what's great from this is that nowadays, I think the next step that any of us is to try and get this scientifically, physically proven. And let's get things where, you know, we're having mediums tested more. We're having people going through experiments. And I don't mean in a negative way.
No. We're
actually having it done positively. And we're going with, you know, we're working with universities and going, do you know what, guys? I'm prepared to do this because I want to see what happens. I want you to tell me what happens with my brain, with my body, with my blood pressure, with my heartbeat. For goodness sake, somebody tell me what happens. Because, you know, you and I know that when we work and when any medium works or anybody in the, you know, the paranormal field works, we get things and we don't know where they're coming in from. And I still say that to people, you know, there's still things what I give people in readings and I'll go, you know what, I don't know where that comes from, but I've just got to tell you. Mm-hmm. And they'll go, oh, right, okay. But, you know, I think we need to get it proven. And jumping back to your question, because I do this now, I'm terrible for this. But I think it's really significant that people, when they're aware of children having an ability, younger members having an ability, we don't diss it anymore. We actually support it because, you know what, I've got people who bring, you know, children to me, and not for a reading. I don't want people to think that, certainly not for a reading. But they'll go, you know, just listen to what they've got to say. What's your thoughts? And I'll go, do you know what? Yeah, they're clearly seeing something here, or they're aware of something. And I've got people, friends now, who've come to me for readings over the years. And, you know, they're bringing their children and going, why is she describing my grandmother and yet she never knew her?
Yeah.
And I'm going, this is brilliant. This is exactly what we want to happen nowadays. You know, we need that younger generation coming through. We need that younger characters coming through that are going, you know what, we were always brought up with this, and we know that there's something in it. We know there's something that's going to happen. And as I say, I was lucky that, you know, my mother used to talk about family stories. My grandmother talked about family stories, and I'm lucky that they did that because, you know what, I was never fearful of mediumship, and I was never fearful of the paranormal. What I was fearful of was the unknown, as I call it, or not knowing. You know, and it was that fear factor that still to this day lingers with me a little bit, you know, and I always laugh with people, you know, in terms of ghost hunts. And I always say, you know, I have two rules in ghost hunting. One is if a door's closed, it's closed for a reason. And I always say the second one is if it is closed, you push a woman through first. And it's never let me down. It's never let me down in all these years. And you know what? People that know me know that I will move anybody out of the way to get out of a room. I just go, right, I'm getting out. You know, and it's pathetic, isn't it? Because I'm 6'5", for goodness sake. You know, I mean, it's like, and there's me going to people, they'll never hurt you. Don't worry, they'll never hurt you. Right, I'm getting out of this room.
I'm out.
Here. Yeah. I'll leave
but you stay there. Here. It's fine.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of questions. One of them actually is on this particular topic of your development from being, you know, when you experience as a child or as an adult, you know, when you start experiencing things. You work quite a lot with mediumship development, don't you? You do a lot of
I do.
that kind of work. So where do you start with that? Do you just sit in a circle? I mean, I've sat in a few, and it's very generic.
Do you know, Kerry? This is a. Sorry, I know I've interrupted you.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
I know. Do you know what? This is one that really frustrates me for people, and it does because do you know what? You know when I got into it. I mean, don't forget, I still had to go through a process. Of almost, even though I knew I'd got it, I had to go through a process of understanding it. Let me put it that way. And I remember, it was difficult because, what do you do as a 12-year-old boy or child? You can't go to your local spiritualist church or your local doctor and go, do you know what, I'm seeing things. All right, because people will look at you. And I remember, I went through the process of very late in life being baptised in the Church of England. And, I went down that route because at the time my sister wanted me to be godparent to her children. But, when I got into it, I had to go, do you know what, you don't approve of what I do, and yet you do what I do. And they used to say, well, what do you mean by that? And I said, because you talk to a greater source, you talk to a spirit, you talk to the Holy Ghost, you talk to something else. We say prayers to somebody else. Who are you saying them to? And they'll go, oh, well, we're saying them, I don't know, we're saying them to the saints, Jesus, to God. And I'll say, so you believe in an afterlife? Oh, no, we don't believe in an afterlife. Well, clearly you do. Because you're saying it to somebody, And just jumping back to that question again, that, I think it's frustrating for people because there isn't enough good level workshops out there or tuition workshops. And what you'll find that most groups will turn around and, if you and I went to join a group now, they'll go, oh, we're closed, you can't join for 12 months. Okay, well, what do I do in that 12 months? Well, we can't really help you because we're too busy. And I always say to people, you know what, when I have 2 monthly groups that run. I had 3, but one of them I've slowed down a little bit at the moment because it was just taking up so much of my time. But I always say to people, I never, ever, ever will close a group because, do you know what, I actually think it's quite healthy that people drop in and out of it and people come when they want to and that new people know that they can join any time because, I always say to the group, if you were reading, I have on average 20, 25 people for each group. And I always say, if you were reading the same 20, 25 people every time, it's actually going to get quite boring for you because there'll be things that you develop a friendship with people.
Yeah.
So I'm always very cautious. When I work with my groups, I'll go, right, you two aren't working together because I know you're not working together because you're mother and son. And I always make people split up, let me say that. And I think for people that you've got to do it. You've got to do it because what is the good of a husband and wife working with each other? It's never going to work. It will work, but the thing is it what they know or is it mediumship?
Yeah.
And that's the difference. And but I think certainly for people that want to develop, please, look for a good course out there. I see courses on a daily basis. They go out there at £350 a day for a course. Some go out there for, 150 for a day. I run mine and they're normally about £59, £60 for a day. A weekend, obviously, if I do a weekend, it's roughly about 120 and that's a 2-day course. If I do a full weekend retreat, I run them out anywhere roughly about 250 now. But, that gives people a bit of an idea. But there's places where you can go, places like Stansted, other good places down, around the country. But, the best thing to do, and I always say this to people, is if you think you've got an ability and there's a group of you that want to try and develop, just have a go. I'll always give groups my time and I'll always go, right, do this, try this, have a go at this, do that. And I can't be with every group. It's impossible. It is absolutely impossible. But if somebody emailed me and said, you know what, we don't know what to do here, what do we need to do? I'll go, do you know what, drop me an email and I will give you some ideas of what to do. And the problem that you get, the problem that you get is people try and create this negativity about, oh, you never sit, don't sit without a medium, don't try things unless you know what you're doing. And yet we talk about the spirit world being loving and caring and supportive. So if they are, why should we be worried about what we do?
So you don't think that people should be aware that there is a possible, or there is a negative side to it too, because when you pass, you're the same person. If you're a horrible person in life, you're going to come through.
Yes.
So you need to learn that protecting yourself and be
do.
able to close that link when, or if you get that kind of spirit come through to you. And we were talking before about families, we were talking about families. Sometimes the family members are not necessarily the nicest people in the world, and have caused huge problems while they were on this planet. You don't really want them coming through to you whilst you're developing, do you?
And the thing is that that's an element of control, isn't it?
It's learning
and
that.
the one thing, the one thing I would do with people is get them to recognise the difference between that. And it's very difficult putting a title on that energy, isn't it? Because I won't allow people to use the word evil, things like that, because I think, that's a really, really hard word. But I totally agree with you that there are our loved ones. You know what? I've got people in my family that if you said to me, I've got a message from a certain person, I'd go, do you know what? I'm not interested. I'm really not interested. And that's because how the character was when they was here. And, you are 100% correct, and I agree with that. But what I always say to people is, this is where your basic awareness comes in, your basic development, because basic development is important. It's about recognizing your energy, recognizing the aura, because until you've done that, you're never, ever, ever going to be able to pick up on when spirit are coming close to you, because it depends which way they come into you. The aura is so significant, or the energy field around us. And I think when you work on basic mediumship, on your awareness level, and people always go, it's boring. It's not actually, because that's the basis that we all work, okay? Mm-hmm. That's how we pick things up. Doing the awareness is what makes you a psychic, is what I call it, okay? So, we've got to be mindful of that. But I think, yes, I agree with what you're saying. There is an element of where you need to recognise it. And I always say to people, remember, whenever you start working in any group or circle, you go to your loved ones upstairs, in your mind, and you go, right, can you look after me? Can you help me? Can you make sure the people that come through are good, positive people, and that they give us a sign, And I always say to people, the biggest controller for me is my loved ones upstairs. Because I go, right, guys, you better look after me tonight because I'm doing this job for you as well. Yes. And you know what? They've never, ever, ever, touching lots of wood while I'm talking to you, they've never, ever, ever let me down, And I always say, if there's something I need to experience, let me experience it so that I can give it to the person, or I can tell somebody about it. But I don't want people going into this thinking that suddenly everything's going to be demonic and negative, because I think there's certainly an element of where a lot of it is almost either generated or almost man-made or person-made, let's call it. And I think that is because I've worked with mediums over the years, and I always remember one specifically. Wherever we went, there was always a demonic monk. Any building. I'm not being. We could have gone into McDonald's and there would be a demonic monk in there. And in the end, you know what? It actually got quite boring. Yeah. Because it was like, well, number one, what is a demonic monk? Because I'm sorry, this is a man that's a devout religion person, and yet you're saying that he's into demonology. Well, number one, you and I know that would never have happened. Okay, there is an element of where religious people would deal with things in terms of exorcisms and getting rid of negative spirits. But, remembering, under some forms of religion, what we do, they would look at us and go, oh, gosh, you've got some really nasty energy around you. You've got things around you that you shouldn't have. Well, okay, well, what have I got? Because I know that who I work with in the spirit world. I know who connects to me. I know when loved ones come through. So why am I negative in what I'm doing? I'm bringing this through I always say to people, from my heart. I'm bringing it through with love. I want the spirit world to come through and go, do you know what, Kerry, I'm here, and this is what I'm here for. I'm trying to tell you that everything's going to be all right and that I know what you're going through. Yeah. But I think certainly in terms of development, it is so hard. And do you know what? I have 100%, I know what people are going through. I know how frustrating it is, because it is so difficult finding a good group. Because a lot of churches, spiritualist churches, won't have them running because they haven't got anybody to do them. What happens is people suddenly fascinated by it, and you'll end up with 20, 30 people going for the first few weeks, and then suddenly everybody goes, oh, I'm not going this week because I can't make it. Yeah. So there's got to be a commitment on both sides. There really has. But, so long as somebody has an element of control, they understand the basics, there's a lot of things that you could do before we even start talking about connecting to the spirit world, to mediumship and clairvoyance. So I think it's going out there and going, what do I want to achieve from this? Go and visit a couple of your local churches, centres, see what they're about, see if you like them, and then go, right, guys, what can we do together? Is this something that we can do? But I know how frustrating it is. There are some very, very good churches out there, centres, spiritual centres. There's good mediums out there, and all of them, hopefully run something that's competent and capable for people to attend.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started, going back a lot of times, a lot of years, should I say, it wasn't a circle. We'd go along, and they called it an evening where you could try different things. So we would try automatic writing, tarot reading, runes. We'd try Ouija board. We'd try, a medium would do physical mediumship, and we'd all be sitting there trying to see what we could get.
Brilliant.
Lots and lots of different things to find out where your ability, I suppose, was your comfort zone with your ability. And that's actually where I started. I'd already had a tarot pack, but that's where I found that was my affiliation. Do you know what I mean? Was reading the tarot, and then later on crystals came into that for me.
Yeah.
And then I sat down and I was told several times, if you developed, you could be a platform mediumship. And I turned around and I went, I don't want to. That's not how I personally want to work. But great for anybody that does. But for me, I want to work in a slightly different way to that. And Spirit, listen to that. And have allowed me to work in the way that I work, both in the paranormal field and in my personal work. And that's the thing, that they'll allow you to work how you're comfortable working, but still push your boundaries.
Yes, yeah. And you know what? The thing is with the spirit world, as you know, once you get comfortable with it, they change it, or they'll change how you work, or they'll make it more complicated for you. And I think that's the thing that we all have to be mindful of, is that once we get to that point and we think we're doing really well here, Spirit are giving me this, giving me information, they'll go, we're going to change it now, and it's not going to work like that.
And then, and you're like, oh my God, what the hell happened there?
Yeah. Oh God, I do. I mean, I remember years ago, and I always used to say this to people, I remember years ago, when working with the spirit world, they used to tell me who I wanted to talk to before an event, where I needed to be, what direction I needed to be in. And now I go into it and I think I haven't got the faintest where I'm going to go, and I don't, that doesn't bother me, because I think, okay, well, they're doing it for a reason. And what they'll do now is, before I've finished a message, they almost start bringing in the next communicator, and I'll go, right, hang on, just a minute. And then I almost have to find where my next one is before I can finish off my first message. And I go, right, okay. And sometimes what they'll do is throw 3 links in at me. So it's like, you think you're being clever doing 2, right? We're going to give you a 3rd now. and I just think, and I just stand there, on stage or platform, and I throw my hands up and I go, right, go on then, go for it. What are you going to do to me tonight?
Yeah.
And I think they must sit up there going, here he is again, get ready, let's wind him up, let's see what we can do to wind him up, But I just want people to realise that they will continually change the way you work, okay? And that's not bad, that's good. Because, I sit for physical, as a lot of people know, and I've sat for physical now for about 1.5 years. And you know what? Some of the things that we've had is fantastic. Some of the things that we sit there at times and I think, this is like pulling teeth tonight. It's almost as though the spirit world are going, no, you had it last week, we're not giving it you again this week. And I sometimes I come out of there and I think, thanks guys, cheers, thanks very much. But there's other times when I'll go in and I'll go, do you know what, tonight something's going to happen, and suddenly, I'll go into my state, my altered state, and the guys will come back, when I come back, and they go, God, we had a hand form in the room, we saw a face coming out of the wall, we heard somebody singing along with us, and it was none of us. And they're going, did you hear it? I'm going, no, because my part's actually the boring part. Because I sit in a cabinet, more or less half asleep, and them guys are singing their little heads off or playing music or talking or whatever. Yeah. And they're seeing everything that's happened, and they're going to me afterwards, and I'm thinking, oh, damn it, I've missed that. Why did I miss that? Why couldn't I see that? But I love it. And I love that, it seems to be now slowly that people are going back to where we used to be with mediumship. People are devoting time, they're generating time, they're prepared to sit on a regular basis, and this is what we're finding, and I think with people, the more that you sit, the more that you communicate, the more that you tune in, you know what, the more they're going to work with you, you know. And I've had it, you know what, they're a nightmare at times. When I say I'm going to do, I don't know, a seance at home, and I've always had this policy with the spirit world where I've always said, right, if we're doing it, we start at 9 o'clock. Do you know what, Kerry, if I start at 8:30, I can guarantee you that somebody will come through and go, not time yet. And they do, because they know with me that I'll go 9 o'clock starting time. And do you know what? As soon as it hits 9 o'clock, lo and behold, something will happen. You know, the lights begin to flicker, the board, the planchette moves, the glass moves, the table starts knocking, and you're going, right, yeah, it's 9 o'clock in there. And they're going, yeah, we're here now.
Yeah.
You know,
you set that boundary, and we're here when you told us to be.
Totally,
you shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, I know. And, you know, that brings me on to the other subject with people, because people very often will say to me, oh, do you open and close? What about opening and closing? And I always go, well, no, because, you know what, for me, I've already set my boundaries with the spirit world. I've already said to them, do you know what, guys, if I'm in my consultation room or I'm with a client, by all means, give me as much information as you want. When I'm out there and I'm doing my shopping, or I'm walking, or I'm going for dinner with friends, don't come and give me a message, because, you know what, I can't deliver it then. Because, you know, the person that you maybe want me to deliver a message to might actually not believe in what I do for a start. I might actually think that I've lost the plot. So, you know, there's a way of delivering it, isn't there? And you see, this for me is when I teach, you know, I always teach people on an awareness. I teach them then on to development, which development then starts developing their ability, their mediumship, the clairvoyance. And then I talk to them about advanced. And the advanced level for me is a little bit about almost like the etiquette of mediumship, you know, things to say it, how to deliver it, how to be professional, how to stand, how to talk. Because, you know, it's so hard. You know, when you're up there on stage, as you know, and you stood up on stage, and the problem is, if you've got a full room, you can't just work with one person. You've got to be able to almost entertain those, 200, 100, 300 people in front of you while concentrating on one link with one person. And that's not picking on anybody. That's not, you know, it's not making it a cruel reading. It's actually involving everybody so that everybody thinks, gosh, yeah, blimey, that was true what he's just said. Yeah, she did understand that. Oh, look at what her dad's saying to her now. Clearly he's watching over her, you know. And it's all these sort of things of going, you know what, you want people to almost be enveloped in that reading with you, don't you? You know, you want everybody else in that room to be enveloped in that reading and going, gosh, yeah, we felt that. We really felt that. She must have needed that message. And I always say to people at an event afterwards, I always say, you know what, just remember the ones that needed the message got them. You know, and I think that's a lovely way to deliver it to people. I really do. But I think certainly, you know, we want to see more people developing their ability, definitely. But if anybody's got any questions or wants any help, get in touch and I will do my best to help out in some way.
That's brilliant. Right. Now, you mentioned that you are working with universities, and I know for a fact you've worked with the amazing Dr. Cal Cooper.
I have, yes.
And you're going to be with him, you're going to be at the same event, the Sage Paracon.
Yes. Yes, I'm so excited about it. Really am.
Yes.
It's going to be great because I've known Cal now for many years. I mean, I'm probably, without giving my age away, I'm probably known Cal for somewhere in the region of probably 15 odd years now. It must be. You know, and we've been good friends for many years. You know, and we exchange stories, we exchange experiences. You know, I ask his opinion and he asks mine. You know, and I think that's really, really important and good because if we can get people like that supporting us in what we're doing and actually understanding what we're doing and vice versa, you know, there's that element of acceptance what's given to us, isn't there? You know, I mean, I remember doing one of the This Morning shows many years ago, and it was the one where, if anybody remembers, where Holly ran off because I'd spooked her with ghost stories and things. But I remember doing a show then with the London University, and it was difficult because it was almost everything that I created as a positive, they then created as a negative. And it was and I almost felt to the point, well, no matter what I say, you're not going to believe me, full stop. Whereas I think that's changing now, okay? I think there's an element of understanding. And I'm actually looking forward to it. Obviously, number one, Cal's a very good friend, but number two, in terms of working with him, and doing some stuff with him, which we've spoke about through the university, and I think that's what we need nowadays. So I'm looking forward to Paracon, not only to meet Cal, but all the other guys, because I know that it's going to be full steam ahead. I'm going to be doing a workshop. I'm going to be doing a little demonstration. I'm going to be doing some private readings when I'm there as well. So, there's going to be lots of things that are happening that weekend for us, and it's going to be hopefully action-packed and full steam ahead action-packed, I hope.
Oh, I can guarantee it's going to be full steam ahead and action-packed. So you're there for the whole weekend. You're there from the Thursday through to the Sunday.
Yes.
And you're involved in everything, aren't you? The investigation as well.
I am, yeah.
Mr. Scaredy Pants himself, is he part of the investigation?
You know what, you put the fear factor up me now, because you just said, and you're involved in everything, and I'm thinking, oh, am I?
Well, there's the masquerade ball, isn't there? The medieval banquet that's going on. There's so much that MJ packs into the Sage Paracon, it's untrue. Totally. So I want to talk to you a little bit about investigations. Now, I assume that you do not know history of the places you go to before you go.
Do you know, honestly, and I can say this hand on heart, when I worked with certain TV shows, I didn't know, and I really, really didn't know. All I got given, and this was before, obviously, was, turn up at a hotel for this time and we'll collect you at this time. And you know what? I had no idea whether we were going to a stately home, to a castle, to a residence, to a factory, to a museum. I knew zilch. And even to the point when I walk into any venue, even now, I will go as far away from people as possible, because I don't want to hear stories. I don't want them to tell me things. I don't want the team to go, oh, we've just read this upstairs. I really, really don't want to know, okay? And I think that's imperative that we do that, because let's be honest, a lot of history is created nowadays. We know a lot of haunted venues have a created story. I'm not saying every one, but a lot of the stories are overinflated or overexpanded in a way. Yeah. And I think it's really important that we remember that. And I always say to people, whenever they come to a ghost hunt with me, you know what, whatever you've read, whatever you've looked at on the internet site for this event, this venue, do not take it into account, because I can guarantee that things will be different on the day or the night. And I think that's what we've got to remember. But for me, I don't want to know anything. I am not interested, because if somebody tells me something, I will just ignore it. And even if it comes through, I go, no, not going to give that, because I know you've already told me this. And that's no different to when somebody's doing a reading with me or having a sit-in with me. If somebody tells me something, I will go, now I've got to ignore that, because I can't bring that through, because you've told me, you've already put the thought in my mind. And that's no different to a ghost hunt with people. I want people, when they come on an event to me, to experience something, and I want them to properly experience it, not me generate it in the mind and go, right, there's something in the room, there's something over there, this is what we're feeling, this is what we're getting. I could do that all night. I could walk around and go, do you know what, there's a man in this room, there's a lady in that room, there's a child in this room. But do you know what, people aren't experiencing it, and that's what I want them to do. I want to say to people, right, stand in that corner, go and stand over there, sit in there on your own, go and take a video recorder, a camcorder, and sit in that room, And you've got to do that. You've got to push these boundaries, because, I have had some weird and amazing stuff happen to me over the years with my mediumship and with ghost hunts. And, people always laugh at me, because I always say, you know what, I'm probably one of the biggest wimps ever with ghost hunting, because I always think if they're going to get somebody, they're going to go for me, because they know that I'm going to be the one that will scream and shout and run a mile. But, I have to laugh, because as many of you know, I live in Nottingham, and I used to run a lot of the events at the Galleries of Justice in Nottingham, or what's now the National Justice Museum. And I always remember at night, at the end of the night, they used to say, right, you've got to go and lock up on your own, because I had to make sure that everybody from downstairs had gone and left the building. And do you know what? I used to run around that building like a screaming banshee, because I thought, if I can't hear them, they can't get me. and that's what I used to do. I used to get into the courtroom at the top, and everybody would be in stitches going, we knew you were coming up. And I used to go, they used to go, because we could hear you screaming. And it was like, it's almost, that moment when you're in a car and you pull out on somebody and you think, if I'm not looking, they can't hit me. Yeah. If I don't see them, they won't hit me. That's what I used to do with the spirit world a little bit. But, you know, honestly, I think, guys, whoever's listening and any venues you go to, please, please, please go in almost with that naked mindset and think, you know what happens tonight is what happens. We can't guarantee you of how things are going to happen. And I have people who'll go, oh, what's your best venue? And I'll go, well, I don't know, Woodchester Mansion, Margam Castle, you know, Galleries of Justice. But I'll go, but it depends on the night.
Yeah.
Because if the group's not right that I'm with and the group don't want to work, activity won't happen. You know, if you get somebody who walks into a room and goes, oh, do you know what, Kerry, we've been in here 5 minutes and this is really boring. Great, you've just flattened the atmosphere totally.
Yeah, you've killed
and
it.
that's what that's what people don't understand is the impact of what we say, and all of it. I'm not talking as mediums, everybody, okay? It affects the night, you know, and all it takes is one person to sit there and, you know, we've always had it where you'll get somebody who tries to unwrap a sweet in the pocket and you can hear the wrapper crinkling in the middle of a vigil.
Yeah.
Or you'll get the phantom snore in the middle of a vigil where somebody's actually nodding off and they start snoring and I go, here we go again. And that's only to mention a few of them. And there's a lot of them what we can mention. We can mention about people with flatulence, people with stomach problems or wind, whatever you want to call it. And it happens. But, you know, you've got to remember to get proper, pure activity. You have got to sit in a room and be patient a lot of the time. And, you know, when I work with certain groups, people will ask me to go along to their events, and I see them in a room and they're screaming and shouting at spirit and, you know, shouting obscenities. And I'm thinking, you know what, if I was in the spirit world, do you know what I'd say to you? I'd turn around and say, do you know what, not likely am I coming through. I'm too busy for all that.
Yeah,
and I think
I always say if you're in a pub, if you went in screaming and shouting, no one's going to talk to you. They'll be scared of you.
Totally, you know, and this is where you've got to have an element of patience, you know, and for people like us that do this on a proper professional basis, let me call it that, you know, I've sat in rooms before for 3 and 4 hours just waiting for that one little bit of information. And once I get that bit of information, I want it to happen again. I want it to happen again. I want it to happen again. I want people to take a photo and take a photo and take a photo and take a photo. You know, I want to see reciprocal sort of activity or reciprocal things happening where, you know, we think, actually, you know what, we can't doubt that. You know, we can all take a photo in a room. You know, me and you could walk into into one room somewhere, take a photo each, and we'd have an element of a light or something across it or a dash or whatever you want to call it. We'd all have it. But the thing is, if me and you are going in and taking 10 pictures at a time, where I'm taking 10, you're taking 10, and then we're going, oh my God, look at what I caught, and you've got the same thing, and do you know what? Look where it was on yours, and look where it is on mine. And we've got something to almost compare. We've got something to say, you know what, in no doubt there's an element of activity there that's happened now. And I think that's what we've got to be mindful of. It's got to be provable. Using a lot of the equipment nowadays, you know, remembering that there is, you know what, there's so much equipment, isn't there? You know, everybody's got a voice box, a ghost box, you know, broken radios, the Ovulus. I'm trying to go through some of the new ones nowadays, you know, and there's certain ones that really frustrate me for people because things like, you know, the Ovulus, for instance, it's almost pre-programmed with certain words.
Yeah.
Well, logic tells you that if me and you got one of those and we put 10 words in it, all we're going to get is 10 words all night. Mm-hmm. So unless somebody's physically sat there and put basically the whole of the English dictionary in it, are you going to get everything that makes sense? And it's a little bit like, you know, like the voice box, the ghost box, the broken radio, is that sometimes, you know, I can be sat in a room with guys and they'll go, oh, did you hear that? And I'll go, no, I didn't hear that at all. And it's almost, is it the mind preconception of what they think they've heard, or was it something physically heard? And again, it needs to be that reciprocal thing, doesn't it? Where, you know, if we're getting something, we're getting it 3 or 4 times. You know, if we're calling out and going, right, guys, call out your name, and I don't know, we've got Jim shouting down from the spirit world, and suddenly if everybody's going, I heard that, and I've heard that, and do you know what, I've heard that as well. If we're getting that, terrific, okay? Yeah. That's what we want to happen. We want consecutive, reciprocal things happening so that people are going, can't doubt that at all. Everybody heard something. And you know, I think this is where going back to some of the good old ways of investigating is that, you know, people go with writing pads or with little, you know, like MP3 players. I was going to say dictaphones, but that shows my age. But But do you know what I mean? Some of the old-fashioned stuff where when something happens, at 12 o'clock you write down that you heard something at 12 o'clock in a certain room and I do it in another room. Well, when we get back together, we can go, all right, well, you heard what I heard. And it's you've got to be able to compare things. I'm trying to think how to put it, but you've got to be able to compare things with different people and think, well, if Kerry was getting it and I was getting it at the same time, clearly that shows you that, we were listening into the same thing or we were both getting the same thing. Mm-hmm. And that's why, also when you do an event, there's got to be an element of organisation to it. Having people run riot around a building just isn't going to get you any paranormal activity. All it's going to get you is a load of people screaming and shouting and banging and slamming doors.
Yeah.
So, you've got to go into a room, you've got to sit down and you've got to go, right, guys, we're in here for an hour. Let's see what happens. No matter how boring it can be at times, we know that something is either working, it's watching, it's trying to get with us, take your pictures, do calling out and see what happens with it. Use tools. And I think that's what we've got now. Nowadays, we have so many sort of tools of what we all do. It's important and it's significant that we use them and utilise them.
Very much so. Totally agree. Know your equipment, know what it does, it's that sort of thing. But so we have had another question. I want to give a big shout out to Steve, actually. I haven't spoken to him for ages. So I love you, Steve. Missed you. And he's been in the chat room tonight. He's missing his broadcasting abilities, I feel. Now, he's experiencing, like when you walk into a room and you get like that spider web feeling, but it's not a spider web. It's that tingling feeling, isn't it? And you brush your face because you think, oh, I've walked through a spider web. But it isn't. What's your take on that?
Well, I'm going to put this very simply. It's almost though you've walked through the spirit blanket or you've walked through the energy field. It's a little bit like when we talk about basic awareness, isn't it? And we say to people, right, when spirit come close, you feel like pins and needles, you feel a tingling, you feel a sensation somewhere on your body. Mm-hmm. And that's no different to when we walk into a room and we go, oh, God, the spirit here, you can feel them coming across the face. And remembering, we can talk about things about transfiguration, we talk about overshadowing, and especially when we're talking about mediumship and heavily developed mediums, people who sit for trance, sit for physical mediumship. We all talk about having a mask, or we talk about having like an ectoplasmic sort of link over the face, some sort of mask over the face. Mm-hmm. And that's what we start talking about. But you know what? If people are feeling this when they're going into buildings, or they're walking through, a good way for me to say this, they're walking through a building and people go, oh, I've just walked through a cold spot, or sometimes a hot spot, remember, okay? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. And it's important that we talk about that because there might be something there. Why is it when I work with a group and I'll go, right, I'm picking something up in the corner there, I want somebody to go and stand there because if there's something there, I want them to touch somebody, affect somebody, make somebody realise it, whatever. I need them to realise it, But, spirit coming in very strange ways. Sometimes they'll stand back and watch. Sometimes they'll be so active in a room that, if we put a ball down in the middle of the room, it starts rolling around. Mm. But certainly what I would say is people that are walking in and getting that cobweb feeling over the face, you're either walking into like an energy field or you're walking into like what spirit have created as a link. And, when I work in terms of mediumship and I walk into a room, I imagine that my energy fills the whole of this room, no matter how big it is. And I go, right, okay, if anybody's there, now come out. Because as soon as they start coming out, I can feel them in my energy link. And I go, right, okay, I can feel you over there. Yeah, I can feel you in that corner as well. And that's how I pick them up. So brilliant. If people are getting it, it shows that you're developing it. It's showing that you're linking in. As an investigator, there's a lot of things that I don't want to say I try and rule out, but I always look for reasons why first. Okay, mm-hmm. Because I think there's a lot of circumstances where a lot of the old buildings that we use nowadays, they have natural sort of heat changes, they have effects, they have bumps and bangs that naturally happen, which is why it's important to document things time and time again. But I think we've got to go in there to experience something. And when we're going in, look for it first of all and go, actually, I can't explain that. Because if we can't explain it, that's the bit that I'm fascinated in. But if we're walking into a room, and, I've had this before, places like Alton Towers, you used to go to Alton Towers, there were no windows in it. So you know what? It's no good standing in a room going, "Oh, I'm feeling cold," because actually you will be.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So it's that natural thing that happens. So, but if we're stood in a building where the heating's blazing out, and you know what, when we walked in, it's actually taking our breath away, and suddenly somebody goes, "You know what, there's a cold spot here," and somebody else experiences it as well, you know, 2 or 3 people, you're thinking, right, that's telling me something now, because we know that the heating's on, we know it's not cold, we know that there's glass in the windows, we know that the doors are shut. It's those sort of things that we want to look at. And you know what, if we can't explain that, that's the bit that I go, that's paranormal activity. That's something that we can't investigate, or we can't. We've looked at everything, but there's no reason why that's. Yeah, there's no reason why it's happened. You know, gosh, you know, I remember a friend of mine bought a lovely house in south of Nottingham, and I remember before he moved in, you know, it was a little bit of a wreck. Let's say that it'd been empty for a long, long time. And I remember I took a private group, and we were doing a séance in the hallway, and we were asking for things to happen. We were asking for activity to happen. And lo and behold, I always remember we were stood there, and I think we were communicating with a nanny or something, if I remember. It was something to do with children. And we kept saying, "If you're there, prove it. If you're there, prove it." Lo and behold, on the top floor, we heard 2 or 3 doors just suddenly slam shut. You know, as though somebody would slam them in temper, because it's almost like, right, I'm going to do it now just to prove you wrong. And I still remember it to this day. And you know what? We never had it happen again. We never created it again. It was something that it was the way it happened. It almost come on demand, because that's the other thing I always say to people. If it happens almost on demand, you know what? We know they're listening to us. We know that they're going, you know what? You've just asked us to do this. So you know what? We're going to do it now and prove you wrong. And I think when we can get to that point where we can communicate with spirit respectfully and knowledgeably, because, you know, we talk about spirit having knowledge, we talk about them having intellect. Well, let's treat them like that, rather than going into a room and screaming and shouting at them, going, "If somebody's in here, you've got to do it now, because I'm telling you you've got to do it." You know what? It ain't going to happen. It isn't going to happen. Show them an element of respect, you know, and you know what? Things start to happen then, because they go, "Yeah, come on, let's prove to them that we're here. Let's prove to them that we can hear what's happening." So I think it's got to have that knowledge with it. It really has for me.
Yes, I agree. Now, you do a lot of writing for lots of magazines, for different magazines across the board. Yeah. I want to know when you're going to do your book.
Oh, do you know what? This is a big psychic kick what I'm getting from everybody that I speak to at the moment. Interestingly enough, we've started doing a bit of a biography. But in the background, what I'm doing, and I'll be doing this just after Christmas, we're actually launching an online workshop platform. And that will evolve of 30 workshops. So there'll be 10 awareness, 10 development, 10 advanced. But that will go out on a huge platform. But from that, there will also be a spin-off of an online forum that people will be able to come and join me once a month. There'll be online demonstrations. But what I want to do from that is almost create like some little workbooks as well that will come alongside. So hopefully you're going to find for me next year that, yes, there will be a book. There'll probably be 2 or 3 personal books as well.
Good.
But there'll be a lot of sort of workbooks I want to say to people, because I know I need to get on and do it now, because I'm terrible for things. And I go, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow. And I've got fantastic friends, you know, who Karen is amazing. You know, she's a literary agent. She's helped me so much with things. You know, there's a lot of people out there that have really put a lot of time into this. You know, I'm just in the process of talking to a new agent, so all this is going to happen. So trust me, it's underway, and I know I've been nagged at, because somebody somewhere upstairs, and it's probably my mother, is telling everybody who I talk to, tell him about his book, ask him about his book, when's he releasing his book? So I know it's something that's got to happen, it really is. But, you know, I always said, I never wanted to release like a biography until I've got something to write about. And I want to say, now being the young age that I am, I've got something to write about.
I think you've got plenty to write about.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
And it's about time you did.
All right. Okay.
So take that. If you'd like to see Barrie in action, then you can check him out at Sage Paracon. That's between the 8th and the 11th of November. There are very few tickets still available, so make sure you get them now. It's in about 5 weeks' time. Not long at all.
I've got some planning to do, I think.
Oh, yeah, I do believe you have. Barrie, where else can people find you?
You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on the website. The website is www.barriejohn.com. You'll find all the links to Facebook and Twitter on the website. So get in touch with us, add us, follow us, follow the event. There is so much coming up this year, still this year, in fact. I was looking at the diary. This month for me holds, I'm in Wales this weekend coming. I'm there for 4 days at the West Wales Wellbeing Show. Too many W's in that. And then I'm literally back, and then I'm off to Germany then for about 5 days at a big convention in Germany. So, there's a lot of stuff still happening. I've got loads of workshops coming up this year. Get in touch with us if you're interested. Look on the website. There's all sorts happening, so get in touch.
Definitely. On that note, we've actually come to the end of the show. I want to thank you so much for making my job so easy tonight.
My pleasure. I told you I'd talk a lot. Tomorrow I'm not going to be able to talk because my voice will have gone.
I know you'll be like, oh my God, that was the weekend from hell.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Guys, if you're interested, on the Parasearch Radio group page, there is a competition running at this moment in time for a pagan rosary that I made by my own fair hands. All you have to do is be a liker of the Parasearch Radio group page and pop your name on the actual post for the competition. Don't forget, all of our shows go to podcast, so you can listen to any of them. We are on Podbean, we are on YouTube, we are on SoundCloud. Obviously, you can catch them here on Spreaker as well. And on that note, don't forget, I'll be live on the Parasearch Radio group page giving you a roundup of the up-and-coming shows for the week. I'd like to thank you again, Barry. It's been an absolute pleasure.
My pleasure, honestly. Anytime I can help, you know where I am.
Oh, don't say that, because I'll have you on every week.
Brilliant. Thank you.
On that note, everybody, thank you for joining us, and farewell and good night.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.